Well, folks, thanks for tuning in again today, day-to-day Stockwell Day, getting the news from around the world, home and abroad. Thanks for the increasing numbers that are joining in. Thanks for the comments. And I just want to send a word out to you. Yes, I have observed that some of you are saying, where and when is the broadcast going to expand? Because as you've pointed out, when I put it up, the link up on X, it does get throttled downwards. There's no question about that. I haven't been able to get a hold of Elon Musk to get that problem fixed. But what I am going to be doing, just to let you know, we're going to be expanding onto Instagram and also some other platforms, so stay tuned for that. Just a matter of me getting figured out how to do that. I'll probably have to get my 8-year-old grandson to help me with that. But thanks for the comments and the observations. And yes, we are aware and we're expanding the network. I want to start today, usually when it's media-related items or items in the arts and entertainment area, we save that near to the end of the news. It's still news that matters, but I just want to highlight today, I want to just talk for a second about Rob Reiner. And I've already mentioned that in the previous podcast, but the very tragic death, of course, Rob Reiner and his wife and the circumstance around it. You may have seen very widely played is in the last day or so, his comments that he made on the assassination, the death of Charlie Kirk, that tragic situation. Now, there probably are not two people on the planet who would be more diverse from each other and polar opposites when it comes to worldview on just about anything. And yet they shared something in common, and that was the ability to want to have respectful debate. And when Rob Reiner was asked about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, when there were many on the left just making awful, in fact, repulsive comments around the time and to do with Charlie Kirk's assassination, I'll tell you what, Rob Reiner was so gracious and so human, and reminding all of us that though we have differences, even strong differences, some things are just unacceptable, unequivocal, no excuses. And he came out so strong and actually so sympathetic toward Erica Kirk and the family. So tragic now with his own death, but something for us to keep in mind. And the other person who's getting a ton of attention today, the last couple of days, and rightly so, more and more is coming out about this gentleman, Ahmed, who is the hero of the horrific and revolting slaughter that took place at Bondi Beach, the attack on the Jewish community there. And he it wasn't obvious to everybody first. He actually was shot 5 or 6 times by that guy he was wrestling the gun from. And we heard from Ahmed's buddy who was with him at the event. They were ducked down, they were hiding behind a car, and they could see this guy, the terrorist, shooting and firing at will. And before Ahmed rushed and put his own life on the line, even before the first responders did, he turned to his friend and he said, I am going to die. Tell my family that I am going to do what has to be done to stop this. So, it's one thing to stand up and be brave when there's no consequences. He was convinced he was going to die, and he still did the right thing. Great to see some of the GoFunding, and even some captains of industry are giving. Bill Ackman, for instance, from stock market fame, I think donated $100,000 to Mr. Ahmed. The crowdfunding is up to over $1 million. He deserves every cent of it and more. So just want to mention those two guys to kind of set a tone, start off the podcast today. Canadian MPs, or at least some of them, are upset because there were some MPs that had been doing a tour in Jordan and on the, let's say, the Gaza side, the Palestinian side, and they were not permitted to come into Israel after they had done their visits there. And I don't know if that's been resolved, but of course they were shocked and surprised. I just take a step back and say, listen, Israel is still reeling, and Jewish people around the world reeling from what happened at Bondi Beach. They continue to be attacked. There are violent demonstrations everywhere around the world daily, and people shrieking and shouting global intifada, which basically means what we all know, that's the Hamas position and the Palestinian position, the extreme Islamist position, is to kill all Jews everywhere all the time. And the particular individuals, the MPs, the Canadian MPs trying to come into Israel, they have been very supportive of the Palestinian cause. They supported the whole business, unfortunately, that Canada did in recognizing a Palestinian state before there could even be one. So here are these MPs. They are pro-global intifada. They never condemn the violent demonstrations even going on in Canada against the Jewish community, and then they find out they're not too welcome when they're trying to get into Israel. I don't know if they got that resolved, but I would hope that they would try and expand their minds a little and not question why, in fact, people that who they cheer for their enemies maybe don't want them to come into the country. The situation related to something else that is kind of broken out in British Columbia, you've seen it's gone international day after day now. There's been reports of the increased amount of cases of extortion that have been going on, and people sort of scratch their head and they say, what's all this extortion business? It's coming, and I'm just not finger pointing here or being culturally insensitive, but it is coming. The concerns are being raised from the South Asian community in British Columbia and in Canada. They're the ones raising it, and they're talking about people within their own community. They're talking about fellow South Asians who are many internationally crime related. Some they feel it may even be terrorism related. But the amount of extortion that's going on in British Columbia among the South Asian community is really horrifying. And we're talking about either threats or in reality of bombings, fires being lit, and it's even now expanding to lawyers that are being threatened for the BC Law Society. Judges are being threatened. It's out of control and needs to be stopped. There are some measures being talked about to do it, and actually even some legislation. I just want you to know that what's being asked for, what the federal Liberals are proposing, is more consultation, more conferences, more hand-wringing, and very little action. And what the South Asian community themselves are asking for is, they say they pursue these people, they can be found guilty, there's evidence against them, and when you get them, charge them, find them guilty, and they must be jailed. They shouldn't be allowed bail. There should be mandatory sentences. It's just rising to horrific levels. So I just want to do a little commentary on that. If you are asking, as a citizen, you're concerned about this, and you are asking the federal Liberals to be tougher on this type of crime, to bring in mandatory jail terms, the federal Liberals and the judges whom they appoint continue to strike down the ability for somebody to have a mandatory jail term if they are duly convicted for certain offenses. We saw a liberally appointed judge not that long ago even took away the mandatory imprisonment of an individual involved in massive child porn activity. So yes, I agree. There should be mandatory sentencing for this type of extortion. It is a form of terrorism, and mandatory sentences. But if you are looking honestly for federal Liberals to be bringing in that type of legislation, it is not going to happen, folks. Keep that in mind when you go to vote. Good news on the economic front in terms of Canada's mining industry. The Teck Resources, very famous Canadian firm, is merging with, it's been approved, they're going through some of the final hoops now, with Anglo America, a gigantic American-based exploration company, joining with Teck from Canada, Teck Resources. that is going to free up and give just actually billions of dollars into the mining industry in Canada, going to provide jobs. There'll be benefits for all kinds of communities, including First Nations communities. This is a massive move in the right direction. I have to smile a bit because all of the people who are upset about the tariffs and Trump's tariff plan, and I don't like tariffs either. I don't think they're effective, but all the people are saying we shouldn't have anything more to do with the United States. This is terrible because of the tariff situation. None of them seem to be opposing this massive influx of billions of US dollars that are going to help Canada. So we'll see how that continues to move along. Some good news, we hope, cautiously, on the Ukraine-Russia front. It looks like they are moving closer to a deal. It appears that Ukraine will be granted a security guarantee, both from Europe and from the US. What that means is, if Ukraine decides to sign a peace deal with Russia, it would mean that if Russia attacks again, that they have a security agreement from countries like the US that they will guarantee security for Ukraine if a deal is reached and Russia breaches the deal, that they are going to be protected. That's been a big factor. It appears that that's going to move things along. We're going to have to see. An interesting deterrent, though, I'm just taking a look, there is the UN is proposing huge financial penalties, as they should, on Russia for the significant destruction they have wrought throughout Ukraine. So they're opposing war compensation, and we'll see if that pushes the Russian agenda to have a peace agreement. See if it pushes that back. We're going to see. Another thing is just happening in Europe. As around the world, we're seeing a reconsideration and a relook at some of the scientific evidence surrounding so-called global warming, or just global weather change. Is not necessarily warming, global change. And significant scientific studies coming out saying, yes, of course, emissions are a problem, but maybe the world isn't about to, explode in a fireball of flame because of emissions. And we're seeing that. We're seeing more development on small nuclear plants. I'm going to talk about that in some upcoming episodes. So what we're seeing is companies and economies moving ahead, because they're starting to realize there are some cases where you can really refine fossil fuels, for instance, and use other means of production. But Europe continues to buck that trend, and they're bringing out what they call even more, they call it Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. That's CBAM. And what they're saying is, as companies leave Europe, and for companies that manufacture, and they go to jurisdictions that have more common sense regulation because of the huge cost of, and I'm talking about the unscientific emissions regulation that you see across Europe that's stifling, crippling their economy, making the price of electricity far more expensive than other places around the world. As you see that happen now, Europe is bringing in even more CBAMs, or Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. It's going to hurt their economies. And we're talking about, a lot of times we're talking about even the parts that go into making, for instance, appliances. About a week ago, I did an item on the show here where we talked about how inefficient even home appliances like washing machines, dishwashers, have become because of the imposition of regulations on how they need to be controlled and the instrumentation that goes with them. So I would say to our friends in Europe, you're just in for more bad news on your economy, because everybody who is making and manufacturing is going to be looking for jurisdictions that are taking more of a common sense approach. We'll see how that moves along. Well, for those of you who are fans of, or used to be fans of Duck Dynasty, as you remember, Phil Robertson and the crew, the great American media company, of course, which is a giant company, and it is really moving aggressively into this, used to be a niche market, now the growing market of family-related entertainment. Looks like they're going to fire up that Dynasty in a way. They've got, you're going to be seeing Jep and Jessica Robertson taking the helm of a lifestyle type of show with reflections from the Duck Dynasty, and we'll see if that's going to take off. All initial appearances and with investment, it looks like it's going to be a pretty good production and going to get tons of eyeballs, meaning lots and lots of millions of dollars pouring into that. And of course, if Phil was here, he would be saying that is going to make him happy, happy, happy. Have a great day, folks. Tune in tomorrow again. Thanks for watching and listening.